So I've gone from guitar pedals to boomboxes. Let's do a really simple little one. But this is just a really simple little machine. It's a TRK-6801e. More of a budget machine, and I'm going to try and fix this one up with parts that I've already got. Basically, I'm not going to order any belts or anything. I'm going to use basic belts that I've got in order to sort this. I'm told it needs belts. I don't know what else is wrong with it. Cosmetic condition's a bit scruffy, so I'm going to try and just do this one up as best as I can. Let's see what we've got. Now that's interesting because the volume's all the way down. Why would we be getting audio? Okay, the volume control works but doesn't turn it all the way down, so something's amiss there. And the cassette deck appears to be moving. There's absolutely no torque on that whatsoever, so that's not going to move a cassette. Also, it made a real crunchy noise there. Yeah, there's no torque there at all. So it looks like belts are probably dry. I think these only take 2 belts. They have a really simple mechanism. They're really simple. But yeah, something definitely up there because volume control. And tone control also appears to be backwards. Not sure what's going on there. When I turn it to low, it goes more trebly. When I turn it high, it goes less trebly. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. So we've got some issues with the pots, tape deck that needs new belts, and cosmetically it just needs a good clean, a bit of a polish. The antenna feels like a gravel drive, so quick polish to be able to sort that. Other than that, generally the condition's alright. So let's see if we can do a quick job on this in one go. Funny thing with this one is it's got a built-in power cord. There's this little gap here at the side of the battery compartment that you can, I guess, stash the plug in, and it's a really short lead on it. I wonder if it was that short originally, or has that been cut short? Who knows, but it's tiny. Yeah, battery foam's the usual. We'll do away with that. And what on earth is that? There's a cobweb in the back and a small spring. Okay. Cobweb covered spring. Interesting. Put that in the jar for a minute, if I can get rid of it. I can see a very rusty looking speaker right down in there, so this has probably been out in a damp shed or something, perhaps, who knows. Oh, interesting. And a couple of bits inside. That looks like a piece of a clutch mechanism, so we're going to find some surprises in this. The screws look pretty crusty. So we've got an antenna screw there we shouldn't need to remove, but we'll do the rest. Some screws down in the battery compartment by the looks of it. Okay, so much like the bigger machines, there is a couple of cables to pull out. There is an orange wire by the rod antenna, that'll be for the FM antenna. There's a little B next to it, but it doesn't say orange like the other ones did. And then we've got power connectors, so ooh yes, quite grim inside. So let's have a close up of what we've got on the power side. So it looks like we've just got 2 connectors here, they're marked positive and negative on the silk screen. So we've got, of course, a black and a red just to remove. And there. So out of the casing there's 4 long screws and 2 short screws that go inside the battery compartment. And just like its big brothers, Hitachi seem to like this design of having the power supply and transformer and everything in the back panel and the antenna, and then just having push-on connectors that go to the main boards. So again, you've got to separate those when you take it apart, and they'll be brushing all this out as well. So what have we got here then? We've definitely just got one belt that drives the flywheel and one of the idler wheels. So perhaps we've got one belt on the front, one belt on the back, or it may even just be one belt and then idler tyres, and that actually doesn't feel too bad, that one, but we will look into it further. But yeah, I think we basically need to give this a good old wash out. Doesn't look too complicated actually to remove everything. I could be tempted to take it all to bits and just wash the casing in the sink. The casing plastic's interesting. It's kind of translucent and obviously painted, and it seems to have the same sort of arrangements that the bigger ones do, where it has these little linkages onto slide switches. So again, that makes them nice and easy to clean. Just got a single record play switch in the top there. So yeah, not too complex. The construction looks really similar to the bigger ones, but wiring's a little bit neater. Looks like I've got some tie wraps to cut, but I think I might be able to get most of that out wholesale. So there's another dial to remove there. That came out really easy. I'm not even sure, does this even... I think it's one of those that doesn't actually use a dial cord. I think it just uses a plastic strap that wraps around, kind of curls up on one side. I've got a Panasonic that does that. It makes them a hell of a lot easier to work on, because you don't have to worry about threading a dial cord. There's a capacitor there that's sort of going on a bit of a journey. Straighten that up. Yeah, it's kind of bodged together quite a bit simpler. A couple are even kind of glued together there. That's kind of odd. So there's some board screws with little screw marks on screen print that I'm going to take out. Ooh, interesting, that's quite long. So that's the same as the other case ones. Wasn't expecting that. And it looks like that would... oh yeah, easy. That'll remove those, that removes the linkage. Got a motor screw down at the bottom. Which is a black screw, about medium length. Black screw here. That's a short one, short black screw. Goes in that, and I can see a ground strap underneath that, so I need to make sure that's reconnected when we reassemble it. What are we doing? There's another black screw underneath there with another ground strap on it. There's a few smaller circuit boards and the mics. So what I'm noticing here is that despite its appearances from the front, that's another longer screw. So another long black screw goes in that top corner. What I'm noticing here is that despite appearances at the front that it kind of has tweeters, it doesn't. It just has full range speakers, and then there's little condenser mics pushed down in the front there. And the speakers, yes, the speakers are Hitachi. They've got the Hitachi logo on, and looks like we're getting a bit closer to getting that transport out. Yep. And take another screw out there of the board. Another long screw. And there's another one down there hiding. Another long screw. Interesting, I've not seen anything do that before. Use long ones from the inside. Take the linkage off, so that's the right linkage. Is that different to the left? Yeah, so the linkage on the right from the front of the machine is a bit wider because it covers 4 positions on the switch. The one on the left of the machine from the front only covers 2 positions, I think, so it's a bit shorter, so they're going to want to wash. Boards out, yeah, it looks like the sort of plastic dial arrangement is really simple on that, so that seems to connect to a peg on the front of the boards. I think it is those 2 screws actually, there's a kind of eject mechanism there. So 2 short to medium length gold screws there that go into this little white plastic bit. The easiest screw to get to. That's a bit better. Same length again. That just lifts out, and that's greased, so I won't wash that, I will just clean it. Okay. Oh, okay, there's kind of a clip on the casing there. It just clips over the edge. Yeah. Okay, we're getting closer. That's come off, I think that's supposed to be there. Don't even know what they're for. Okay. I'm going to remove these smaller boards. Again, shorter gold screws. One here. Yep, short gold screw. What's that for? Not even certain what that's for. It's a little. There's an inductor, a couple of transistors. Might be a preamp for the microphone or something. I'm not sure. Why would it have an inductor? I don't know. I wonder if that microphone will come out. It's probably glued. That might be an issue. So we've got a cable retainer here. Okay. Gives us a bit more room. So it's got a couple of LEDs on it. So there's only one microphone, there isn't one at the other side, so I'm tempted to desolder that because it's glued in. Desolder the wires, just make note of where they are. We've got a purple wire on the top and a grey wire on the bottom. Tempted to desolder that, remove the speakers and everything, so I can wash this front. The mic's not going to be an issue really, it'll dry out. Come on. 8 speaker screws and a wire retainer and a pile of bits. So I think we're going to take this entire front section, desolder the microphone as well, and take this entire front section and clean it out. Just noticed the previous owners scratched the name into the side of it. Barbie Jameson. Give our love to Ken, won't you? Gore shots for the horror fans. It ain't too pretty, but we'll give it a bath. There it goes. Just using an old paintbrush. So these bits of tape, I'm not sure what they are. They're all kind of disintegrating. I don't know if there's some sort of insulator maybe. If they are, I'll probably replace those with Captain tape or something like that. I'll look further into that. Just certain what their purpose is, but they are disintegrating. I kind of like doing these smaller boomboxes because this is really difficult to do with the bigger ones. You can't really get the bigger ones in a sink. With little ones it's quite easy to completely strip them and just get right in there properly and give them a bath. So while the casing's drying, I've just polished that half of that knob. They'll never come up perfect, they're too far gone for that. You can see by this one that's not been touched at all, and the half of that one, I think we'll be able to get them at least a little bit more respectable. Do you know what? I just kind of went for broke. I got the Brasso out. I did start with Plastex, but I thought, sod it, let's just see what happens. And like I said about the last ones I did, they feel so much better, and it kind of all is all about the way they feel. So yeah, I think we'll continue with that. So I think the next thing I want to look at is these pots, because it's pretty evident that this has been in a damp environment and there's a lot of corrosion going on here. Surprisingly, they feel fine, the grease has held up, but I don't think they're making proper contact. Now, move you. Look on the looking on the back. There are 4 little tabs that you can bend back, and that holds on the front can. I think that if I remove the front can first, I should be able to remove the shaft and the wiper, have a look at the track, and if it's necessary to remove the wafer, I think I can desolder the connections. It's a little bit unusual in how they work. They do go through the board, but they're only kind of soldered to a flat solder land, kind of on one side, so it's a little bit unusual. It does make me wonder if there's any cracked joints or anything there that might just want reflowing, but I mean, look at the state of them. You know, I don't think it's worth just reflowing joints and hoping for the best. These need taking apart. Don't think there's much chance of them cracking, to be honest, because they're really well anchored down by that frame. There's much more expensive stuff I've dealt with that has pots anchored way worse than that. So they've actually done a pretty good job there, but yeah, it's just from storage conditions, these have really perished. So if I can't remember which is volume and which is tone, I'm going to have to look back on the top and think about the way this went round, because the DIN socket's on the back, so that would be the back. Okay, I've worked it out. That's volume, that's tone. So yeah, volume has more connections to the pot. Normally what I try and do is lift them up a little bit, like that, and then you can go underneath and bend them back. And then when you've got them so far, grab them with a fine pair of pliers and bend them straight. Not super easy to do on this because it's so corroded. Got it. Alright. Now I can get in there and clean this up. And surprisingly, it doesn't look too bad inside. Just very carefully cleaning the wiper. It's good stuff, that rust remover. So I'm going to re-grease it because I had to clean out the old grease. Some white lithium grease will be fine, and put some of that Fader Lube stuff in, reassemble it, and then move on to the next one. And all we've got to do is squeeze them back together, which again is not the easiest thing to do when the pot's in place. This is much easier to do on pots that are disassembled and removed from the board, should I say. I did this on an entire set of pots for a milk synthesizer once. One of them, the wafer had actually completely shedded its carbon coating, so I had to find a pot that was close that had the same wafer but a different construction, and buy it in a reverse curve that I needed, and then swap the wafers over because I couldn't get a direct replacement pot. It's going. That's it. And finally, that'll hold, that's fine. Okay. Feels good, feels a lot easier than this one. Let's hope that made some improvement. I won't know until I fully reassemble it. Okay, it's the next day. I'm on with the tone pot now. And something I should mention, don't use your best ones, but if you've got a set of these really sharp side cutters, I mean these are ever so cheap, it's worth having a good set and a scrap set. These are really good to sort of get in there and just start it off. Don't clamp down on it and cut it off, but they're sharp enough just to get underneath and just start to peel it back, then you can get in with the screwdriver. It's a little bit awkward to do it on camera from this angle because, for one, I'm having to bend my wrist weird and I'm covering up when I'm trying to shoot. So some of this I am having to do off camera, but at least it's getting done. See, this is not an easy angle to get at when I'm left-handed. It's coming. There we go, got the front off of that, and that looks just as disgusting as I expected. Okay, so that's been cleaned. It's looking a lot better. So, a couple of things we're going to do. Put a little bit of the blue stuff on it. You only need a little bit. And take a little bit of lithium grease for the inside of the pot. So I've got a tube here. Try not to get any lithium grease on the contacts when you're doing this, and then that's the right way around. The opening goes to the bottom, text goes to the top. That's the right way around when it's down. Okay, secure. Let's hope that makes a difference. I think it's time to focus my attentions on this mucky tape deck then. There's a lot of this that's pretty scrappy still. I just want to try and get some of this loose muck off really. See, it's not great. I don't want to sort of strip all the greases off it, but most of this I don't want it floating around in the mechanism either, so I can always re-grease it. But yeah, it's pretty gross. Oh, it's actually gone that dark. Do you see this little teardrop shaped white plastic piece here underneath that belt? That's probably part of a pause mechanism, and that is where that little spring and that little sort of capture nut thing little push-on washer has come from. So I reckon that's the pause key. Yeah, look, see. So it's really common for those little sort of plastic washers, those little press fit washers, to split and come off on either pause mechanisms or even take-up clutches, and that will be where that's come from. So we might try and get that on and see if we can glue it. So having a closer look at this, it might be difficult to see from the angle of the shot, but what I worked out is this little black peg that this piece is around is a little plastic peg, and it splits in the middle and then kind of folds out to two little clips, and one of the little clips is broken. I thought this would be a steel axle, but it's not. It's a little plastic clip that splits into two, and because one of the little wings, if you like, has broken off, it won't hold the top piece anymore. That thing, it won't hold that anymore, so it's gone flying off into the battery compartment. So what's weird is it appears to have some sort of glue around it, and it looks like, I don't know why this would be, but it doesn't look like glue that someone else has done. It looks like factory glue. It looks like the other glue that's used around it, like to hold the mic in and a couple of other things. So a bit weird that it would be put on like that and then glued, but maybe it's the way. But I might try and get that back on with a spring, see if I can get a tiny bit of super glue on there, and it might just hold it. So it's going to be delicate, but I'm willing to try it. Next job then, let's get this bracket off and get this belt off, and I'm going to clean these pulleys. And we've got, I think, one on the side as well. That's got, I think, a little washer around it. Underneath it, yes. So one on the side. Good again, don't have to completely loosen it, although I think I almost have. I'm going to be careful with that. Oh, I have, look. Okay. Keep an eye on how that went. Let's get this belt off. It doesn't feel too bad, that belt, but it feels a bit dry. It's not keeping its shape, but yeah, it feels like it's probably ready for changing. Pop that aside. Give these pulleys a clean. Yeah, there's quite a bit of residue coming from it. I've had a clean round, put a new belt on, and this little rubber wheel, or rubber tyre around this little idler wheel I should say in the middle, I've cleaned with some rubber restorer. I think we've got a slight problem here. When this is put into play, this gear here is driven from a pulley at the back, connects to this idler wheel. In fact, we can do it if I turn the flywheel. Hopefully you can see that. So the middle idler wheel transfers the movement from that pulley, that gear, to the outside rim of the take-up hub, and this take-up hub and spindle are actually separated, and there should be a clutch mechanism within this. And I think that clutch mechanism is a little bit seized. I think it's a bit tighter than it should be, which is causing, if I stop it, it's causing that gear to slip against the idler tyre. Now that isn't where the clutch is supposed to be. The clutch is supposed to be under there, so that should grip pretty much no matter what, and this should be doing the clutch duty. And because I think this is a little bit seized up, and this rubber tyre is probably a little bit worn, it's slipping here. So the more we let that slip, the more it's going to wear out. there's a possibility of getting this top piece off, getting to that idler tyre, taking it out and possibly putting a new tyre or an O-ring or something on it, but don't know if I've got anything. If I have got any O-rings, they're probably round section when they really should be square. And yeah, I'm convinced this clutch is a little bit seized. So I think I'm going to take this little circlip off, take this clutch apart, just give it a clean, just have a look. That was awkward because it has no split in it. Alright, let's look at this clutch mechanism. That's a little bit disappointing. Unfortunately, it can't be separated. It's exactly what I thought it would be. Two plastic plates with a felt washer in the middle. It spins fairly freely there, but I can't sort of get in and adjust it or clean it. There's nothing I can do with that then. That's a bit disappointing. I've never seen one of those before that didn't have a little split in it for getting it out. That's really weird. So just with a bit more cleaning, and just to do a test here, I've got two probes. They've got 6 volts coming off my power supply. Now this says it's a 9 volt motor, but being as it's connected to the rest of the board, I'm going to go steady on it. So if that is ground, I've got the tape deck in play, and it's going, and I've purposefully put it in the middle of a tape to test the tension, and it doesn't look like it's flopping. But I am convinced that clutch is not quite working as it should, and without getting replacement parts, I'll probably never be able to put that quite right. But with use it might improve. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. Because at least it's not eating the tape. Out of interest, I've just hooked the power supply to the power supply terminals and listened very carefully. That's basically an FM station that's just detuned. There's no station there. But I'm turning the volume control up and down, and it's working. It goes down. And if I turn the tone control, turning it up, turning it down. So the controls at least are working. So we've fixed that bit. And I think we probably made the tape deck, for what it is, as good as it can be. I think we'll look at trying to get some of this clean, switches cleaned and back together, turn off the power supply. Wait, we forgot a bit. This pause mechanism, amazingly, the spring and that little clip, dare I say it, is holding on. I'm going to keep my finger over it, and I've just tested the pause mechanism and it works. So I'm going to keep my finger over it. Yes, this has happened to me before. I've had them launch across the room. Gluing them doesn't always work. If they've got splits in them, it's really hit and miss. If you try to glue them, I've had clutch mechanisms that the glue appeared to take on, and then when I tried to move it, it exploded and launched across the room. So the tarnish index that you see in a lot of 1985 and onward cassette decks, cheap boomboxes and such. This might be a tarnishing design actually, but it's not. I don't know what the model number of that particular one is. Right, too much is going to come out of this. I only need the tiniest bit. In fact, so much is coming out, it's running. I'm going to do this. Might get a cotton bud, cut the end off. Kind of need a an applicator, if you like. That's it. That's what I want. These disposable super glues are a bit of a bugger. I try to keep it upright in the tin. And I keep them in, but you end up throwing most of them away just because they glue their own lids on. It's great that they're in small disposable amounts, but no one needs that much super glue in one go. Oops, there goes a battery or something that's falling off. So let me dispose of that before I stick it to everything. Okay, the glue's had some time to set. It works. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to replace this idler wheel here. I actually made an attempt at this earlier on, but it was actually yesterday. And I figured I'd be able to get into this from the front. And I started to take all the head block apart before realising I don't think that was actually possible. And I think the proper way to do it is actually to remove a screw, a spring and a bracket from the back and pull it through from the back. There isn't any point really in including any of that footage, but I will mention that I nearly got it completely wrong. But yeah, I ended up completely disassembling the head block, so I will have to demagnetise and realign that. That's not a problem when I put it back together. But yeah, the replacement roller is this one, and it came from a company called DataServe Retro. I got this on eBay, and you notice on there it says Amstrad CPC 464. It seems this particular mechanism was I think a relatively common mechanism prior to 1985, before the really common Tanashin mechanisms came into effect really. And I was just casually browsing eBay for spare parts for tape decks, and a photo on this auction came up with a photo of this area of the mechanism of the first generation, the earliest run of the Amstrad CPC 464 computer with the built-in tape deck, because it used the same mechanism. And I recognised this straight away. I've got a Panasonic tape deck which I think uses a variant of this same mechanism, and I'm not certain who makes it. It may have been Tanashin, it might have been Sankyo or someone like that, but yeah, prior to 1985, and I think this was made 83 or 84, you do sometimes see this mechanism or variants of it with this idler wheel. And they've had a batch of them made brand new, because it's a fairly common fault on machines of this age, and it shows up a lot in that particular early generation of Amstrad. And being that they kind of deal in retro computing stuff, they've actually had these newly made. It was only about £6, and they do a version which is just the tyre. You can fit to the existing wheel for about £5, but it does warn that it's possible to crack the wheel. So for an extra £1, I thought I might as well just get the entire wheel and replace it. I've never really had good luck trying to recondition an idler tyre. It's just never worked out for me. Anytime I've tried to do that, I've ended up replacing it anyway. So for the sake of £6, I thought it was worth having a go. So I'm going to flip this over and see if it's possible to get there from the back. So I've actually removed the motor bracket and the motor just to make this a little bit easier on myself, ideally. But of course remove the belt. But there is, if you can see that, a screw and washer there, and this bracket is what the idler wheel is connected to. There's also this little spring that I need to disconnect now. I'm going to see if it is possible to get it out without having to remove everything else. it's worth a go. So let's just have a go, see what we get with it. Just about. So we have the screw and the brass washer. Question is now, can I finagle it out? Work. I got it. I managed to finagle it around, kind of drop it down a bit and then get it just from under the flywheel. I've taken the top little circlip off. It's actually just up here, just out of shot. So that's the old wheel. I'm just hoping that when I put the new one on, it's not going to damage it with me trying to get that past that. So yeah, the spring's still there. Alright, slight change of plan. You look at this wheel that's in the pliers, you see it's got a longer sort of stem on it. There's a kind of a cylinder in the middle that sticks up a bit. Well, the one in the pliers is the new wheel, and the one in my hand is the old wheel with the new tyre. Unfortunately, I discovered, oops, that's just gone walkabout, but that's okay. I discovered that the bit that sticks up on the original wheel is a bit shorter, so there'd be no way to get that new wheel onto the shaft and put the circlip back on. So I've had to do what I didn't want to do, which is swap the tyres over, but I've done it. I'm really glad I bought a set of these dental pick tools, because they made it possible basically. I think without those I would have really struggled. But I can definitely feel and see a difference in the tyres, in the sort of texture of the tyres. So I'm going to give that a quick clean because I've been handling it, and then I'm going to refit that old wheel with new tyre, and hopefully that will make quite a big difference. Alright, it's back on the arm. I had to review the footage on the camera to remember which way it went up. Luckily it's got that little number 10 on the top. It gave it away, so the circlip's back on. Also gave me a chance to change my camera card over because it was about to fill up, so I was lucky. Right, now I've got to try and finagle it back into this thing. It's done. The new wheel's on, I bolted the motor back on, and this ridiculous precarious balance, which involved desoldering the microphone again, is the only way I could get it to give me access to this hole for the setting the motor speed. If I put my bench power supply on at 9 volts, it'll come to life, and the torque on that feels so much more consistent because it's actually slipping in the clutch, not in the rubber wheel. I don't know if you can see that, but if I hold it, the little rubber wheel here that I've changed continues to move. It doesn't stop. So that means that the clutch mechanism in here, which is supposed to do the bit that a clutch mechanism is supposed to do, is doing the bit that a clutch mechanism is supposed to do. So it was well worth changing that rubber pulley, because now we'll have consistent torque. So what I've got to hope for now is that I can get some kind of output to be able to set the speed. Sound down for copyright reasons, but I'm just running kind of a scrap tape through this, and when I first put it in, the sound was really wobbly, and it now sounds like it's easing up a little bit. So I think I'm just going to run it in this sort of precarious state, propped up by a couple of tape rolls. I'm going to run it, I think, through a 90-minute tape, and then just see if it kind of eases in before I try and set any speed controls or anything, because I think it probably just wants to bed in a little bit, and then see what it's like after that. Out of curiosity, I wondered why it's got this ringing, and I've noticed that earlier before. I realised what it is. I'm not sure why this happens. It must be something to do with the load, but it's connected through the DIN connector to my oscilloscope, and if I disconnect the oscilloscope, the ringing goes away. So it must be something in the DIN circuit that I don't know, causes some sort of weird ringing in the thing, but it's not a fault, I don't think, of the unit, but at one point I thought it was. Really weird. Okay, so we've got a speed calibration tape in, and if I give the thing a twist, you see that frequency reading down at the bottom. We'll go up and down, so we're trying to get this as close to 3000 as possible, because this is a 3K tape. How low will it go? 2.4. So this has got 3K tone on this tape. And we want to try and get this to 3000. It will jump ever so slightly. I'm going to call that a pretty good average. Let's zoom out and see what it averages to. Yeah, that's pretty good, I think. I think we'll call it there. I really need to copy some more of my tunes onto tapes, don't I? But using this same tune, I suppose it lets you gauge how consistent they are, these boomboxes. So yeah, obviously it's all been bolted back together, finished the rest of the cleaning, polished the aerial, polished the handle as best as I can. As I said from the start, this isn't the greatest example, it's a bit of a rust bucket inside, unfortunately. So it was just about making it the best it could be, and I think it's scrubbed up pretty well considering. It's kind of weird that the tape door is, the smart plastic is so dark you can barely even see the tape. If you've got a good example of one, it might be a fun one to put an LED in or something, but that wasn't the objective in this. It was just to make it, as I say, as good as it could be, considering what it really is. So yeah, I hope some of that, especially in the mechanicals, has maybe been of some help to anyone who's got a similar transport in anything they're working on, whether it's a boombox or apparently an Amstrad computer. It's fiddly definitely to get that rubber roller and the little arm it's on out of the back of the thing, but it's not impossible. It probably took me about an hour to get it in and out altogether really, so yeah, overall I think this has come out alright, definitely worth doing, so hope you enjoyed.